Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our workshop this evening. We're just going to wait maybe 5 minutes before we get started, just to give everyone a chance to arrive and join the room. While we're waiting, though, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat, say hi, where you're joining us from. Be lovely to know where everyone's calling in from. And yeah, we'll just give it a few minutes to give everyone a chance to join. Cool. Hi, Ziggy. Hi, Jess. Nice to see you. Oh, Lampeter, great. We're also in Wales, so we're hosting from Llandailo. So nice to see more people in Wales. London, alas. That's okay. Great, we'll maybe just give it another minute or so, just to make sure we don't leave anyone behind. And then we can get started. While we do wait for 1 or 2 more minutes, just wanted to say maybe grab a pen and a notebook or some paper, because one of the exercises that we're going to do involves a bit of writing things down. So if you haven't got that now, take this opportunity to quickly grab that, and then I think we can get started. So, should we go to the first slide? All right. Great. So, welcome everyone. I'm just going to go through a few little kind of housekeeping things that I'm sure everyone is super familiar with by now, but just to make sure, if everyone can just make sure that they're on mute, that would be really great. Your camera can be off or on, it's no problem, but just to let you know that we're recording the session and that we are going to be sharing these workshops on YouTube. Oh, sorry, just noticed there's a little bird joining us as well. That's awesome. So yeah, if you don't want to appear on YouTube, feel free to turn your video off, that's no problem. If you'd like to pop your pronouns in your Zoom name as well, that's great. And our tech support for the workshop this evening is Ryan, and he's got a World Horizons logo and he's got tech support as his name. So if you have any issues, anything like that with like breakout rooms or technology at all, then you can just message him and he'll be able to help you out. And if you've got any questions or comments as we are going through, then feel free to pop them in the chat and we can get to them as we go through. Jess, if you click on your like video in your little picture, there's a button with 3 dots. And if you press that, a menu comes up and you can rename. If you've got any problems, Ryan will sort you out for that. So that will make sense. Let's go on to the next slide. And I'm just going to run you through the content of the workshop that we're going to do today. First of all, we're going to do a quick introduction, go through what it is that we're going to cover in the workshop, and then go on to a little intro as to who we are, who Wild Horizons is, and why we're running these workshops. So the first thing that we're going to do is a inner landscape survey. So this is like a questionnaire exercise that we're going to go through together, and then we're going to have breakout rooms where we can chat about the experience and what we found, what came up for us. After that, we're going to have a 10-minute break, and then when we come back from the break, we're going to do an idea storm to come up with some ideas for a self-care design as a discussion in the main room, and we're going to have a little look at resources and starting to identify our resources. So that's the like content for the workshop today. So yeah, do you want to go to the next slide? So first of all, I'm going to introduce Wild Horizons as a project and say who we are and what we do. So we're a project that connects people and projects who are working towards regeneration and social change. We're currently based in Carmarthenshire, and we are online mostly at the moment. And one of the things that we wanted to do to contribute towards social change is this series of workshops that we've called Conversations World Beyond COVID. So we basically kind of, as everybody has noticed, that COVID and the pandemic has really sort of highlighted and exacerbated a lot of social issues, both in our country, around the world. And we really want to start kind of new conversations with people, start encouraging people to look at how we can move forward and build resilience in our communities. One of the first steps in this is to, you know, start taking care of our own mental health and our own physical well-being so that we're able to contribute to wider struggles. So that's the aim of this individual workshop that we're doing today. And I just wanted to touch quickly on the use of permaculture that we've used in designing these workshops. So I have studied permaculture and I use it a lot. I'm very passionate about it. And one of the things I love about it is how it's not just about gardening. You can use permaculture design tools for all kinds of things. And we used a lot of them to create these workshops. So the 3 workshops that we're doing are very heavily influenced by the 3 ethics of permaculture: the earth care, people care, which is this series of workshops, and the fair share, which is the next one. And a particular sort of tool in permaculture that we use is talking about zones. And that is how we designed this culture series of workshops. So in this workshop, we're starting with zone 0, which is the self. And in subsequent workshops, we're going to work out towards wider zones and sort of wider networks and community. And another tool that I used in creating the content for this workshop was this acronym here, SADIM, which is a design process tool. The different parts of this workshop follow this design process. So we have survey, analysis, design, and implementation. The M is for maintenance, but we're gonna cover the first 4 in this workshop today. Functions and elements is another tool, but I'm going to go into that later on. It's relevant to the idea storm that we're going to talk about later. So I'll sort of explain that one later on. But it's just to describe and explain how flexible and useful permaculture tools are, and that we can use them to do all kinds of interesting things. So we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to look at this inner landscape design tool. So this is a tool that was created by Jasmine Dale. She's a friend and mentor of our project. She's written this lovely book permaculture design companion that I absolutely love. And she did this tool with us in our group at one of our gatherings, and we just found it really, really useful and helpful for us. And it's basically all about resilience and well-being, and using a design tool really helps kind of keep the momentum going, gives you a framework and a structure so that you can really look into your inner landscape. So looking at zone 00 in permaculture, this is what we describe as the inner world, yourself. So this is the survey part of the design process. This is where we're just observing, collecting information, getting a picture of where we're at right now. We don't bring any judgment or analysis into this process. We're literally just gathering information. So we're going to go through this quite quickly because we don't have loads and loads of time. So this is more just kind of like an intro to the tool. We'll be giving you the slides, so you'll have access to the questions. So I definitely encourage you to have a go again or regularly when you have a chance to really kind of go deeper with it. But for now, it's just sort of like a quick introduction just to get you used to the idea and the process. So Ryan, if you can go on to the next slide. So first of all, it'd be really nice if everybody just kind of gets comfy, gets settled, and if everyone just takes a nice deep breath in and then a nice long slow breath out, so we can really like ground ourselves and get ready for having a good think. So everybody just takes a second just to breathe in. And have a cup of tea with your bird. I'm really enjoying this little bird hopping about, it's great. And so yeah, if everybody just gets comfy, gets ready, and grab your notebook and your pen. So what we're doing is sort of quick keywords, the first things that come up. So don't think too much, don't write an essay, it's totally okay. I'm going to give you about 15 seconds for each question, so it's going to be quite quick, but just, you know, keywords, concepts, just have a go at it and see how you do. So if we can have the first questions, please. So I'm going to read the questions out to you so you can concentrate on writing. So the first question is, what is growing well in my life and why? Okay, then next, have a think about what bigger support systems are you part of? Whether that's a community, social groups, family, what are the support systems that are in your life? And then the next question, what undermines my thrival? So this is not just talking about your ability to survive, but to thrive. So it's a term that Jasmine uses called thrival. And yeah, what can jeopardize that or undermine that for you? Okay, and then the next question is, what conditions do I flourish in? What do you need in your life to make you flourish, to help you be the best you can be? And then where am I depleted? In terms of a garden, this idea of needing nourishment, needing nutrients in the soil, inputs like water and sunshine. Where are those inputs depleted for you in your life? Okay, then the next question. Seems to be kind of missing a bit on my screen, but I have it here. So, oh, here it comes. Okay, so what ideas refresh and excite me? So what gets you going? What gets you up in the morning? Or at nighttime, depending on your schedule. And then have a think about what blows you off course. What are the things that are distracting, maybe, that take you off the course that you want to be on? And then what are my passions? So what are the things that you care about deeply? What are the things that you love to do and work on? Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Sorry, I've just seen a thing in the chat to say that a few people have just joined. So welcome, and feel free to dive in. We're halfway through this exercise, so we've still got a few more questions. We're going through them quite quickly, just key things that come up. And don't worry, we'll give you the recording and the slides, so you'll get a chance to look at the first set of questions later on. So yeah, do feel free to join in if you've just arrived. Okay, well then let's go to the next slide and the next set of questions. So where am I really relaxed? Where do you find it easy to just switch off and relax? And then what situations exhaust me? So what do you find draining, maybe difficult, something that makes you feel really tired? Are they sometimes the same thing depending on how you feel? Okay, and then next question. All right, what parts of my life are in transition? So often change and flux can be quite a stressful thing. Maybe it's an exciting thing, but there's often something that is changing in our lives. So what parts of your life are changing or in transition at the moment? And the next question, what is my current emotional state? Yeah, sometimes this can be quite hard to figure out if you're not used to paying attention to it. So it's a great question to be able to ask yourself, what's your current emotional state? How do you feel right now? And then what would I like to transform in myself? This can be quite a challenging question. You've only got 15 seconds. But yeah, what would you like to transform in yourself? What are things that you would like to maybe work on? And the next question. One of my favorites. Where do I hold good boundaries? Super important, especially when we're thinking about self-care and health and well-being, is good boundaries. So where are you particularly good at that in your life? And then the next one, where am I too rigid? Maybe are there spaces in your life where your boundaries are perhaps feeling a bit restrictive, not allowing enough flow maybe? So where are you too rigid in your life? And then the next questions. Yeah. What role do I have in my community? This is nice thing to think about. You definitely have you definitely have them. There's lots of different roles we all hold at different times. So yeah, what kind of roles do you have in the various different communities that you may be in? And then the last question is, what are my unique and special qualities? So it might give you a little bit longer to go through that one, because it's nice to have a really good think, but also I think it's something that we can often find quite challenging, is thinking about what makes us special, what our unique qualities are, what we can bring to a group or a situation, and we're not used to maybe thinking about ourselves in that way. So yeah, have a really good think about what your unique and special qualities are. Okay, so that was a real quick go through of this exercise. Hopefully it's given you a bit of an idea around how you could use something like a survey tool. These questions are kind of organized around sort of looking at our inner landscape as if it is the landscape. So things to do with boundaries, to do with changing things, transition, how you feel about stuff, the elements of fire, air, water, it all kind of influence the questions that are on that survey. So kind of looking at our inner selves as a landscape that we can observe and make observations around and collect information about, so then we can move forward. So the next part of this process is to do a bit of analysis and to look at what we've learned from doing this survey. So we're going to go into breakout rooms. Hopefully, I don't know with numbers how many. We'll probably try and do about, let's say, 3 or 4 people to a breakout room, to give us plenty of time to chat and share and sort of think about how that was. So there's just a few questions here for you to think about and chat about while you're in the breakout room, to sort of help you get the conversation going. So how was doing that exercise for you? How did it feel to go through those questions and think about some of the things? Was anything difficult? Was anything hard? Did you find any of the questions like, I just don't know, I don't have any information for this question? Was there anything surprising or unexpected that came up for you? Just sort of, how did it feel to do that? And then we're kind of working towards sort of trying to identify needs that come out from doing this survey. Are there any needs around self-care, your inner landscape, that you want to identify and look at? That's what we'll be moving on to in the second half of the session. So hopefully we've got breakout rooms ready. I'm going to attempt to, oh gosh, put some of these, well, put these questions in the chat so that hopefully you can see them whilst you're in your breakout room. So I hope that's worked, and I hope that you'll still be able to see that when you go into the breakout room. I can never tell what's going to happen. But Ryan, if you're ready to send everyone off, we're going to have 10 minutes to chat. You'll get a minute warning to say that you're coming back in a minute. And so you can just use that as a chance to sort of wrap up what you're saying and end your chat, and then you'll be unceremoniously yanked back into the main room where we can share some of the feedback that came out of the breakout rooms. So yeah, Ryan, if you are ready to allocate Okay, I think we are maybe coming back from breakout rooms now. It looks like it. Ah, great. Okay. I think that looks like we're all back-ish. So great. Thanks everyone for a good breakout session. I hope that was helpful. So we're going to go on to the next slide and do a bit of feedback. So Ryan is going to stop the presentation, I think, and he's going to collate feedback from everybody onto this slide. Ooh, no, not a break yet. Sorry, gang, not quite yet. We'll do this bit first. So people can, I hope, feedback in lots of ways. So feel free to write things in the chat, and Ryan can keep an eye on that and get your feedback into the slide. If anyone wants to raise their Zoom hand and say, and then I can maybe see that if anyone wants to like unmute and be brave and speak to the group. There's not loads of us, so it's not too scary. Or just unmute and shout out what you think or what came up in your breakout conversations. We did get some feedback that was quite quick, so I do apologize about that, if it went too fast for everyone. When we did this session with our group, it took us about half an hour, maybe even more like 45 minutes. So it potentially could take a really long time, and we just don't have the time in this workshop to do it to that depth. But hopefully it kind of gives you an idea of what you can do with it. So does anybody want to share anything that came up in their breakout room that they'd be happy to share with us? Any feedback at all?
I was saying that it made me think the questions about kind of what support and community kind of made me feel that it made me aware of how I've been lacking in kind of contributing to the community and support around me. And then that kind of reflects in me not necessarily feeling supported or like I have a community, but that's also because I haven't put in kind of the groundwork to keep those alive as much as really I need to.
Yeah, interesting seeing how the things that you are or aren't putting out into the world maybe reflect in what you are or aren't receiving. Very much like gardening, no? You get out what you put in when it comes to gardens. So yeah, seeing what your inputs into those systems can create, that's great. Thanks. Anyone else want to share anything? Feel free to just unmute and shout out. I feel like we can handle a little bit of chaos.
So you know that principle you mentioned is true, but you're held back because it becomes a bit of a feedback loop whereby you try and help, but you just don't have the capacity because you need the support, and it sort of goes round and round and round, and you get isolated, and then it just feels like you're not contributing enough. But then you can't unless your own ground is fertilized, and you've got it's just round and round it goes, that kind of thing. I don't know if that makes any sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, totally. Someone else saying that they feel that too. It's a sort of chicken and egg situation of what do you do first? Do you need the community to support you enough to be able to contribute to community? It's really interesting dilemma, I suppose. And yeah, I think maybe finding ways, yeah, like Ryan says, to support each other and yeah, really starting with the zone 0, like the real inner place where you feel like you can contribute even a tiny bit, then I think once you can get into a positive feedback loop, it's amazing how quickly that can spiral upwards. So yeah, an inch is enough. That's great. Yeah, great. Anybody else got any feedback they want to share?
One thing I would say on that kind of reciprocity of support is is that way it's been conditioned into us to believe that you only deserve support if you have something to offer. There's this, you know, that you have to kind of bargain for support, and that I think is part of the big kind of, you know, one of our missteps in this culture, and it's one that we could do with readdressing. That the idea that you've got to have something to give back is not helpful.
Yeah, totally. I think that's definitely a reflection of the very sort of transactional society that we live in due to capitalism and stuff, that that definitely means that we are, yeah, like you say, conditioned to feel like we have to repay people for the things that they do. And yeah, that definitely stops people from asking, I think, for help. Yeah, maybe figuring out ways that systems of support can go to the people that need them, as opposed to waiting for them to ask for it, because it's always much harder to ask for support when you need it the most. I think that's often a challenge as well. Yeah, maybe we've got space for a few more bullet points if anybody else has anything they want to throw out there.
I was wondering about that roles question, about that we immediately went for, you know, the roles that we would think of ourselves in. And I wondered if the question was framed as, what roles does your community think you live into? It might have some different answers.
Yeah, totally. Whose perspective is that question seen from? What roles are being put on you by society, by the communities that you're in? They might not necessarily be the ones that you want or the ones that you've chosen. It's definitely a big part of that. That's really interesting. I'm just looking to see what Joanna's popped in the chat. Yeah, taking time to connect with people and building bonds, yeah, can be difficult. Yeah, great. And yeah, was there any last thought? Go for one more if anyone feels happy to share. I think community came up a lot in our conversations in our breakout room. How lately, with people moving and being isolated because of COVID, it's been actually quite hard to build communities. I guess, like you're saying, Joanna, that it takes time and connection and all of the things that maybe it's been difficult to put in at the moment, so that we were all sort of feeling a bit of a lack of that right now. So yeah, that definitely makes it difficult for people. So hang in there, everyone. Thanks. So true. Oh, great. Well, that was really great. Thanks everybody for your contributions and for participating in that exercise. I definitely recommend, like, now you're going to have access to the questions, to the slides and everything like that. You're going to have the opportunity to do that exercise as and when you'd like. So I definitely recommend doing that. Yeah, what to do when you feel depleted. Absolutely, we need to think about how we can replenish ourselves before we can move on and help with other things, other struggles. Right, we're gonna have a break now. I've just realized we've gone into the break a little bit, but I think that's okay. So we're gonna have a 10-minute break, and feel free to turn off your cameras, get a cup of tea, go to the loo. We'll play some relaxing music for you, and yeah, come back in, so 10 minutes, which will take us up to 7 o'clock, and then we've got the second half of the presentation of the workshop. So have a good break. We'll see you back in 10 minutes. Okay, everyone. I think that's 10 minutes of delightful, relaxing music. I hope the break was refreshing. Hopefully people are back. There's not many videos on, but hopefully everybody is rejoining so we can get cracking so that we don't run over. I'll try my hardest to get us finished by 7:30. So the next part of the workshop, if we go on to the next slide, yeah, great, is we're going to do a bit of an idea storm, coming up with ideas for self-care. So this is going to be the design part of the SADIM acronym that we used at the beginning. So we've done the survey and analysis. So that was the questionnaire in the breakout room. And now we're going to start looking at the design. And one design tool that I find really, really useful in permaculture is the tool that it's called functions and elements. And so apologies if anybody or everybody knows all of this, but if you don't know about permaculture, this is a really useful tool to use. So I'm just going to give a quick overview of how it would work and how it would apply to a sort of self-care design. So a function is something that needs to happen in a system. So in a garden system or a land system, looking at something like water collection, that would be a function. And an element is a part of the design that fulfills a function. So in this example, it would be something like a pond. And the reason that I really like elements and functions is that it has this really great built-in resilience to it, because the idea is that a single element should perform many functions, and each element should be fulfilled by each function should be fulfilled by multiple elements. So in the garden system, a function like water collection could be fulfilled by multiple elements, like a pond, a water butt on your shed, storing water in the land by earthworks, things like that. And an element such as a pond can fulfill multiple functions. It doesn't just collect water, but it also attracts wildlife. It creates more edge for you to plant different types of species around. It fulfills multiple functions. And that creates a really strong resilience in our system. So when we're looking at self-care, the functions are things that we need. This is when we're starting to look for needs in our system. And going through this survey, hopefully, was something that could help you identify or start to identify some needs that you might have around self-care. And then the elements are strategies that can help us meet those needs. So what we're going to do now is, on the next slide, we're going to, if Ryan can stop the presentation, we're going to collect some feedback and information from people. So again, feel free to unmute and shout out, or put this in the chat that I can open now. And where's our presentation gone? There it is. So we've got here an example of a function is more alone time. So needing more time to yourself, and an element that might help you meet that function is meditation, for example. So hopefully we managed to come up with some ideas of functions for self-care. But if people just want to start throwing out ideas and thoughts, either functions or elements, hopefully we can start to build these two lists and then start to see where we can make those connections between the functions and elements. So does anybody want to add anything, say anything?
So a function for me that I need to focus on for sure is rest.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah, that's a really good one that I think we're often quite bad at.
Conflict engagement.
Sorry, say that again.
Conflict engagement.
Conflict engagement.
Yeah. You know, whether there's a structure or a system for engaging when there's a conflict that can't be met face to face or is too difficult to.
Yeah, right. So yeah, perhaps the function would be like kind of dealing like with conflict in a healthy way, and then an element that would help us meet that function would be like a really robust conflict engagement system that we've designed. So that's a great one. And then positive and supportive interactions. Yeah, that's great. While play, I love that. Very bad for that one. Elise, is that a hand that you're waving?
Yes,
Yeah, go for it.
So I'd say a self-care thing for me that I've not been doing is like making time for like gratitude. I think is especially important at the moment with all this climate stuff, which can just make you lose hope for life in general. So yeah, gratitude.
Yeah, fantastic. So that's definitely a function that I feel like we could, when we maybe start to list some elements, we maybe will be able to find lots of different ways that we can find gratitude, which would be really great. Yeah, movement, self-expression, connection. Oh, these are all really lovely. I'm feeling very like happy just looking at this list. Yeah, nourishment. Oh no, we're not going to have enough room. That's great. Make it smaller. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, music could be maybe even a function and an element, just to confuse things. It could be something that we want to make more of, and also a way that we could meet a lot of these as well, these functions. Oh yeah, ritual and ceremony, that's a really great one. And beauty, lovely. I can't wait to start coming up with some elements. Hobbies, though perhaps that's more of an element. Yeah, I think I love that we're having to move it all around. Yeah, maybe hobbies are an element that could help us, I think, meet a lot of these functions. Perhaps creativity would be a function that hobbies, I know that's what my hobbies are literally all about, helping me with creativity. Purpose is another really great one. Yeah, oh, this is all really awesome. So yeah, maybe let's try and think. Now we have this really great list of functions. So this is what we want our self-care design to meet. Some of these, we want to start meeting these functions, because that's what we think will really, what we know will really help us like nourish our inner landscape. So now we need to build some elements into our design that will help us to meet those things. So is there anything that anyone is doing currently, that they have previously done, that they want to do more of, ways that they can, that they know will help them fulfill these functions? Anybody want to shout out? Yeah, Jess, I see your Zoom hand.
Sorry, trying to figure out how to use this. Thanks. So one thing I really want to do more of is like unplanned walks in nature. So like exploring places, just finding a spot and going, that looks kind of interesting, and just going and enjoying and being with the space.
Yeah, nice. Exploring in nature, being spontaneous. I love that. Oh, we got some good ones in the chat. I don't know if you've seen them, Ryan. Yeah, growing food, journalism, journaling, cultivation and foraging. Oh yes, that's my happy place too. That's amazing. Any other? Oh, swimming. Yes, wild swimming as well. Also ultra nourishing if you have a good spot to go. Any Anyone else? Well, swimming is just swimming. That's true. If you're super lucky and you live somewhere with the good spots. Painting, being funky. I like that. Nice. Yeah, so these are all really, really lovely kind of tools that we can use. Yeah, conversation. Even just this conversation has been funky. Cycling, cycling as well. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, board games. Yeah, so I think having particular functions that you want to fulfill in mind, I think it'd be really interesting to see how they link up, how yeah, I'll explain once we've got maybe this last one on here. So, oh yeah, pampering, taking care of your body, absolutely. Yeah, spontaneous play sessions. I like this idea of like things being really spontaneous. I think that's a really nice kind of energy to try and cultivate, especially because often our time is really rigid and structured. I say as I'm about to be really rigid and structured with the time. So maybe something that I just, want to kind of explain about how this tool can then be used is, now we've got these two really great lists. Hang on, safety and or calmness. Yes, clutter makes me anxious as well. So like a clean, clutter-free space, tidying, that kind of thing. Yeah, definitely with you on that. Yeah, so this is brilliant. So now we've got these two lists. We've a list of functions and a list of elements, and then we won't do it on this slide because it will be a technical nightmare and also really messy because our lists are so long and juicy. But what you can do now is you can, maybe we can put it in present mode and then we can see it bigger. Great, thanks, Ryan. So now what we would do is we can start to make connections between the different ones. So I'm going to have to be really like on the ball and just go off the top of my head here. But let's say, for example, we've got movement here is a great one. So we've got here, we cheated and put them all in one bullet point, but the movement function over in one column. In the elements function, we've got yoga, dance, and movement. That seems like a pretty obvious connection to make. But maybe also swimming, cycling, spontaneous play, community gardening, all of these are different ways of meeting the function of movement. And then we can also see how each element could then start to fulfill multiple functions. So let's say, for example, what could we say? Let's say community gardening. That could match up with positive and supportive interactions with play, with movement, self-expression, connection, nourishment, growing food, ritual and ceremony, purpose, meaning, just so many different things just coming out of doing some gardening with your community. So I think this tool is super helpful to help us see how, especially when we have a lot of time pressure and we feel like maybe, there's so many functions, how are we ever going to meet all of these different functions, that actually even just taking 2 or 3, maybe 4 elements from this list and really drilling down into them and seeing how many functions each of them can actually meet. And then looking at each function and seeing, how many different elements can I have in my life that will meet this one function. I think it's really, really useful. You can really see how resilient that system can start to become if you don't have time to do everything on your elements list. Maybe just pick the ones that have the most functions that it fulfills, and that feels a really kind of efficient, which sounds a bit it's not quite the right word, but it just feels like a much more nourishing way of doing things. So I really recommend, feel free to use this this is a really great list that we've compiled of both functions and elements. So maybe when you get the slides, maybe print this off, maybe start to connect the dots up and see where you can really build your elements and functions into your design to make something that's really like robust and resilient. So that's great. Thank you so much, everyone, for contributing to that. I'm really excited to just like find all of the connections there. So we're going to go on to the last little bit of our workshop, which is, looking at resources. So now we've done our survey, we've analysed it, we've started to build a bit of a design around self-care and how we want to look after our inner self. We need to actually do that. Permaculture is, sort of 80% planning, but there is 20% that we actually have to do. We need to implement our design now. And a big part of implementation is resources. And so, first of all, I thought it would be useful for us to maybe kind of have a bit of a think and a chat about what actually is resource. I think we often think of resources in terms of physical, tangible things, money being a big one. Yes, thanks Ziggy for that excellent miming. Time, another really big intangible resource. So yeah, again, we've got maybe sort of 5-ish minutes where we can have a little think about resources. Does anybody have anything that they want to throw out there around what they think resources are, what resources are important to them, what they need, anything around energy? That's a really big one, and I think an interesting one because it can fluctuate so much depending on a lot of other different factors. Personal energy is my most treasured resource as an introvert. Absolutely. Our knowledge, that's a really great resource, and a really important one for us to be aware of what we have in that. Social support. Yes, networks, connections, the people that are in our lives. Perspective. Oh, that's a really great one. Definitely helpful. Any other resources that people can think of? Maybe things like good food, nourishing food. That's a resource that not everyone has access to. Oh yeah, the landscape's energy around us. I definitely feel that being in Wales. I definitely get a lot from that. Money, yes. Yep, that's definitely a resource that is useful. How about skills? It kind of goes with knowledge, but yeah, things that you know how to do and can maybe teach and share. Space and land, home. Oh, absolutely. They're all super, super important. So when we start to think about implementing our design, self-love, oh yes, that is often a limited resource for people as well. So that's really important. I think one of the tools that I've also found really useful in this part of the process is doing a kind of a list. So the second bullet point here of what do we have versus what do we need? I think something that I've found really empowering for our group as Wild Horizons was one of the first things that we did as a group was we sat down and we wrote a list of all of the resources that we have as a group. And we went from the sort of really tangible physical resources like vans and cooking equipment and money and housing and all of these things out to like completely random things. We were just checking everything down, and it was really great to see what we actually have, and really useful to see where there were gaps in our resources or in our knowledge base or in the things that we had access to. And so I think that's a really, really great start, is to identify what we have collectively and what we need in order to start implementing our design. And once we've got an idea of what we have versus what we need, then we can start looking at this final point around resources, which is something that's super important to us as a project. And basically the whole kind of purpose of our project really is, how can we start sharing resources and meeting needs? So perhaps this kind of links back a little bit to the feedback that was coming out at the beginning of the session around how it can be quite hard to give and contribute when you need the support to do that in the first place, and how to actually get started. Maybe this is some kind of start of a solution to that problem, is starting to see, where are you abundant in things? Maybe you don't have a lot of time because you're really, really busy with your job, but maybe that means that you have an abundance of physical resources that you are able to share. Or maybe vice versa, maybe you don't have lots and lots of financial resources because you're employed part-time, but that means you have more time perhaps to give to something. So maybe seeing which areas in your life you're abundant and have abundance, and be able to contribute and share resources from those areas to start helping other people meet their needs, and then seeing then where you might be, where there might be gaps in the resources that you have, and perhaps able to make connections to start creating sharing networks, which is something that we are going to start, well, we're going to cover and talk about in our next workshop, but starting with yourself and really seeing how you have abundance in some areas and perhaps not in others, and start to identify that first, so that then you can go out and start building those connections. So yeah, does anyone have any thoughts around kind of sharing, what we might, any ideas on how we can start sharing resources? It is something we're going to talk more about next week, but if anyone's got any initial thoughts, ideas, things that they want to share about sharing.
I think some of it is like shame. So some of it is obviously like sort of physical infrastructure, like how do we, facilitate the sharing of resources. But I think some of it is shame, because people are afraid to admit, I don't have this knowledge, or I don't know these people, or I can't afford to do this, or things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the great things about mutual aid networks is that it's not charity. It's very much recognizing that everyone has something to offer, and that if you are receiving aid from a network, that doesn't mean anything about who you are as a person, and that you are going to be able to contribute to that network in some way. And that's something I find really inspiring about that kind of sharing. Yeah, that's great. Anyone, feeling like asking for help is a weakness? Yeah, that's definitely a problem in a society that expects us to all be high achieving and highly individual as well. Feeling like we don't need people. Yeah, anyone? Oh, Kate, yeah, I can see you with your real hand up.
Yeah, well, first of all, I went to this gift I can't remember what they called it, gifting circle or something. I'm sure it had a name, something like that, where we went in the circle and everyone said what they need and what they can give. So it was sort of like a sort of barter circle about everyone saying what they needed and what they could give. So that someone could just say, oh, I feel like I need a massage, and so it could be, or it could be something really practical, or it could be I need someone to help me move something, or so it could be anything. It was it was called a gift circle or something. I can't remember what it was.
Oh, that sounds like such a nice idea. And I like the idea of starting with what you need rather than what you can offer. That's really great. Jess, your Zoom hand.
Yeah, I was just going to say that it is super nice to start with what you need, but I would say that maybe starting with what you can offer might be better to help avoid the shame of asking for stuff that you need. Particularly like at the beginning of a journey. Like if you're only just starting out to realizing, like, hey, community can be a good thing and we can all help each other and there's no shame in it, to start out maybe suggesting just, hey, I have this that I can offer and it won't negatively affect me to give away some of this, so my time or my knowledge, and then moving along to the other way around.
Yeah, I think it's super important to meet people where they're at with it and their level of comfort and kind of how they feel about asking for help. And yeah, we've got to ease into it for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. So
sorry, it just occurred to me as well that sometimes you don't necessarily know what you need. So if someone suggests that they have something and you can just go, oh, I really need that. I never knew, but I really need that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the reasons I like this exercise that we did at the beginning, is like really spending time thinking about what it is that you need. It's maybe not something that we do a huge amount of. So I think that's also a really great practice to get into. So yeah, we've got not that long left, so I'm going to move on. But basically there'll be more about sharing and resources and that kind of thing in our second session, which will be next week. But if we go on to the next slide, I think we've got a kind of quick moment for a Q&A. If anybody has any questions they want to ask or anything that they really want to just leave on the table before we wrap up, that would be really lovely. I'm just going through the pictures in case I miss a Zoom hand or anything. Resource. Oh, okay. We call it everything we think of as ours to use as resources. Yeah, that's a really good. I think, especially when it gets used in sort of resource extraction, this idea that everything is there for us to use. Have you got any thoughts around what we could say instead? Because I think that's a really yeah, as one of the problems with language maybe is that, or at least in the English language, I wonder if there's something beautiful in Welsh that means something. Oh, Library of Wonder and Awe. I mean, I'm here for it. I think that sounds really great. I'd happily rename all the times we use resource with Library of Wonder and Awe. Thanks, April, for that. Yeah, and I also agree that it's super important to be mindful of the words that we use in the language that we use and how things can come across. So yeah, thank you so much for bringing that up. That's awesome.
We could call them gifts.
Gifts, yes.
Because that maybe sort of implies that we don't necessarily always have to get what we want, because we might have all sorts of things that we need and want, but we don't necessarily always have them all the time. We have to just kind of accept that we don't always have the things we need and want, and when we do get them, it's like a gift.
Yeah, that's lovely, Kate. I really like that. But gifts imply possession. That's, yeah, I suppose. It's a big a big thing. I've definitely come to realize that language is deeply imperfect, but I love playing with it. So I love the idea of coming up with different language for that. Jess, you Zoom hand, I see.
Yeah, so having just finished my degree, this was one of the things that came up in it. And there's a super interesting section of anthropology called New Materialities that's looking at things like that. And it's looking at a different way of looking at yourself as not just being you within your body, but you with the world and the world with you, and you are part of it in a way that's more than just your body. It's really difficult to explain.
Like everything in anthropology, it seems like.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it kind of offers a different way of looking at resources, because whilst resources is a difficult term and gifts does imply possession, it can also, if you look at it through the lens of materialities, then it's not you taking, it's you using yourself in a way.
Because
like
we're
I said,
part of the
really
system.
difficult. Exactly, you are part of it, so you're not taking from it, it is you.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm gonna suggest if we go on to the next slide, I think that this kind of stuff would be really cool to carry on in our Culture Beyond COVID signal chat that we have set up. So in deeply technologically fancy ways, we've got these QR links here. If you have a smartphone, you can scan them right now and join our signal chats, or I am going to put the links for them in the chat now. So we've got a bunch of different links for you. You can join, our Telegram group for Wild Horizons. We've set up the Signal chat group for this workshop. So if you're interested and you've met nice people and you want to carry on conversations and everything, you can join that. And don't worry, Jess, we'll help you do it. It's fine. And yeah, we will send all of them out to everyone as well. There's also a link in the chat there to our website, so you can get access to the recording of this workshop when we put it up, and also a link for our next workshop, which, if we go on to the last slide, is basically just thank you very much, so much for coming and participating and contributing all of your time and energy and everything to this workshop. It's been really, really great. Our next one is going to carry on this theme of the zones. So we're going to move from zone 0 out to zones 2 and 3 and look at connection and our communities and how we can start building connections and resilience and everything like that. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, if people want to, I hope we managed to finish just about on time. If people want to unmute and say thanks and bye, and hopefully, yeah, we will see you all next week if you would like to come, if you're available. And yeah, have a lovely rest of your evening. Thanks so much, everyone, for coming.
Thank you. Bye. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye, Kate.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye,
That's
Diego. Nice to see
Hi.
you.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.